Usual, I'm going to do my Grok introduction to the video that I'd like to do, and then, but I screwed up and accidentally closed the thing, so it's not as refined as it used to be. You started talking about gadgets again, so I'll modify it as needed. We'll also likely be joined by my friend Kelly shortly, and if that happens, I'll probably drop the script. So because she has lots of questions, and I just watched this video from Rich Does Politics that blew my mind when I heard it. I was like, what is going on? If this is true, it's like we have to completely change our perception of everything that's been going on in the world today. So, and if Kelly, when Kelly joins, hopefully, we might review it together so her mind can be blown. Anyways, episode 20, ceasefire cracks, intelligence failures, proxy wars heat up, and spy tradecraft. Yeah, that was one of the things. Lessons for 2026. I can definitely talk that, but it's lost the fact that I was so interested in the space stuff. So good evening, good afternoon, Spy Guy Nation. This is David March, your historian in the trenches, coming to you live from the Spy Guy channel. If you're new here, welcome. We cut through the spin, the headlines, and the deep state fog to deliver raw intelligence analysis, geopolitical realism, straight up spy tradecraft. Well, I haven't been doing this spy tradecraft in a while, but yeah, and I also kind of put on yes, no American first cheerleading. That's certainly true. I'm Canadian. No partisan hacks, just state interests, power plays, and the cold logic of espionage. So at least Grok's maintaining the core. I've managed to shape it into going to realism and not so much America first stuff. It really thought I was Tucker Carlson for a while. And I was like, oh, this doesn't make much sense. I am more of a political realist and not an American firstist. Tonight's episode, ceasefire cracks wide open. So I'm just going to be checking back and forth. We're only days into what was supposed to be a fragile pause in the 2026 Iran war, and the fractures are already showing. Proxies are stirring, oil markets are twitching, and the intelligence community is scrambling. We'll break down the latest field reports, dissect the spy angles behind the scenes, draw historical parallels from MI6 and Cold War ops, drop some fresh espionage trivia, and then with what this means for the realist endgame, which is what I'm kind of about. If you're watching the replay, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and drop your question in the chat and comments. We'll tackle a few live. Like I won't, except for maybe JP and a couple other people, we don't end up interacting with a lot of people here, unless I have Warhound on. Yeah, I will not be shouting out to Warhound Actual this week. We might be doing a show tonight. It all depends. He's got a new job, and it's not one his body's used to. Segment 1, current events briefing, the ceasefire cracks. Let's start with the headlines. You won't hear framed this way anywhere else. As of April 10th, 2026, the ink is barely dry on the Iran ceasefire, and it's already splintering. Reports from the Strait of Hormuz show increased Iranian naval patrols and proxy activity out of Yemen and Iraq. I haven't heard about that. Israeli strikes on Iranian intelligence assets. Remember the hit on Minister Asmail Khatib back in March? Wow, that was like one of the first episodes I used this script. I've left Tehran's networks reeling, but not broken. Here's the realist read. This isn't about ideology or good guys versus bad guys. It's about power. Iran needs to project strength to hold its proxies, Hezbollah, Houthis, and the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. Israel needs to keep the nuclear threat contained and the energy lanes open, or does it? When we get to the Brendan O'Connell interview, a lot of this stuff is like completely tossed on its head. Tossed up and turvy. Hey, JP. Yep. Good to have you here. Israel needs to keep the nuclear threat contained and the energy lanes open. The Gulf states, they're hedging bets, pumping more oil to stabilize markets while quietly cheering any pressure on Tehran. Oil prices have spiked 8% in the last 48 hours on rumors of renewed attacks on South Par's gas field infrastructure. Great. That's the same field. Yeah, it does remember my previous episodes. The same field we covered in episode 15, the one that sent global energy into chaos while Israel hit it hard. Markets are pricing in disruption. Brent crude flirting with $95 a barrel. Tanker insurance rates jumping. If the ceasefire fully collapsed, we're looking at 110 easy, which is where we were 48 hours ago. Cyber peace. U.S. and Israeli intel agencies are reporting a surge in Iranian-linked cyber attacks on Gulf infrastructure. Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE. This tracks with the 2026 annual threat assessment we discussed last briefing. We did. Yeah, I guess we did. Cyber espionage isn't a sideshow, it's the new front line. Tehran's hackers are probing for weaknesses while the proxies test physical red lines. It's making up stuff. That's not a good thing for me. Why is the U.S. isn't stepping in hard? Realist answer: because great power don't plead for allies' wars unless their own vital interests are at stake. Washington is watching energy prices and Chinese-Russian moves in the region's state interest first. Accuse me of having someone asked me a question. The only question we had was a GP sound issue yesterday. Okay, and intelligence deep dive, failures, assassination, proxy networks. Now the spy stuff who you tune in for, let's talk tradecraft and breakdowns. That's not actually what we've been talking about, so I'll have to refine it once again. Iran's intelligence minister assassination exposed serious operational security failures on their end. Mossad level precision, minimal collateral, and message sent loud and clear. But Tehran's response, flooding the zone with proxies and cyber ops instead of direct confrontation. Classic asymmetric warfare. Recall our March 20th daily briefing. We flagged cyber threats and proxy escalation as the big risk. They're playing out. Houthis launching drones toward shipping lanes again. Iraqi militias probing U.S. bases with indirect fire. This isn't random. It's coordinated through Iran's Quds Force remnants, even after the leadership hits. Let's go to check. Historical echo. This takes back to the 1980s Tanker War, something I should get into. I have a good article around here about it. Iran used proxies and mines then too. The difference today, drones and cyber make it faster and deniable. Yeah, the problem with mines is that you can't tell your Chinese ally how to navigate around them. Lesson for today's spy: attribution is everything. If you can't prove it, you can't punish it effectively. On the flip side, Western intel has its own headaches. The 2026 threat assessment highlighted over-reliance on signals intelligence, while HUMINT networks in Tehran are thin. That's why targeted killings matter. They disrupt command chains when you can't infiltrate. I don't have graphic suggestions there. Made a bunch of segments, not just 3 this time. I usually have 3. Segment 3, geopolitical realist analysis and energy markets. Zooming out to the big picture, pure realism, no moralizing. I moralize a lot. Every player is acting in their self-interest. Israel neutralize existential threats. Iran survives sanctions and project regional hegemony. Gulf monarchies keep the petrodollars flowing and buy influence in Washington and Beijing. Russia and China exploit the chaos to sell arms and lock in cheap energy deals. As I said before, I don't think Russians involved in this. They cut out early on Iran, and I think they're getting revenge for Chechnya. Every angle from episode 15 returned. It really seems to like my episode 15. A full breakdown of the ceasefire means renewed attacks on Strait of Hormuz shipping. 20% of global oil passes through there. One minor drone storm and insurance markets freeze. We're already seeing tanker routes adding 2 to 3 million per avoidance cost. And already we're also seeing, curious that's how much Iran was going to charge for access to the Gulf. Pragmatic policy takeaway: diplomacy only works when backed by credible force and intelligence dominance. Ceasefires without enhancement are just pauses for rearmament. Watch for Tulsi Gabbard style testimony on Iran's nuclear status. She nailed the measured assessment last time. No historia, just facts on enrichment levels and breakout timelines. As we said, this is about, as we often cover here, this is not just about what we see, what what they're trying to sell us. They're trying to peel back the layers of what's really going on. Segment 4, historical parallels and spy tradecraft lesson. Time for the historian's corner. The Iran mess rhymes with the 1953 MI6 CIA Operation Ajax, the coup that installed the Shah. And apparently everyone in Iran does actually want the Shah back, which is shocking to me. Maybe they'll get a constitutional monarchy out of it. He's kind of a playboy, doesn't have really any testimony there. But I guess, when you're hearkening back to the good old days, much like Russians look sometimes, old people love communism and forget the bad parts. They look back on the Shah era as the good time. They certainly didn't at the time when he fell. Back then, British and U.S. used bribery, propaganda, and targeted disruption to protect oil interests. I really should do an episode on that too. I've been talking about it so many times, but it is absolutely hysterical, some of the stuff that happens in that thing. Today is drones and cyber instead of bribes, but the goal is the same: control the energy choke point. Well, I think bribes are still there. Spy tradecraft lesson of the week: dead drops and cutouts. In the current proxy fights, Iran is using layered cutouts, militias that aren't officially tied to Iran to maintain deniability. Classic technique. If you're studying espionage, and I know many of you are, read up on Kim Philby's Cambridge 5 network. I should do something about them too. Betrayal from within beats any missile. A quick trivia tie-in. Okay. What is the code name of the British? Oh, yeah. I know all about this. For the British double-cross system that turned German spies into Allied assets, answer double-cross system. And my friend loaned me a book on the double. I still have it. I think he basically gave it to me. J.C. Masterman's original tale of double cross is how I really break into all this stuff. It was run by MI5's Double X committee. Over 120 agents flipped. Lesson: trust no one, verify everything. Yeah, you can't. Like, I've talked about Agent Garbo making up fake agents before. So I'm just going to check here. No Kelly yet. Well, she said 2:30, so I was hoping to get through this stuff first. Okay, so thoughts on Epstein files dropping amid all this direction or deep sweet state house clean? We'll cover the latest in episode 21. So yeah, maybe I'll return to the Epstein for now. The Iran war seems to be calming down for a bit. That's it for tonight, agents. The ceasefire is cracking, but the real war is is in the shadows. Intelligence, proxies, and power. Remind me, I got to get around to finishing off the night agent. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and keep questioning the official story. If you got value, like, subscribe, share with a fellow history buff, and support the channel. And maybe I'll be talking to him tonight. So that was kind of a neat tearaway. But now we're waiting for Kelly to join. I'm going to switch over to the stuff that blew my mind on Crypto Rich's show today. This guy has an interesting story to tell us. And yeah.
British sense of humor and always smiling. I look forward to a great conversation.
Yes, thank you. First time on this channel. I have links where people can find your stuff, and I found you're on Substack. Now, you spent time in Iran, so and I listened to an interview you did with on Geopolitics and Empire channel, and I recommend people go and check that out. But you were talking about Iran, the Iranian regime, and I assume IRGC and stuff, having connections with money laundering and the drugs industry and wild parties domestically, because you were in Iran. And I know, what's he talking about? No, come on. So come on, tell us.
Very briefly, I did a 79-day hunger strike in jail. I was the first to be jailed under racial vilification legislation in Western Australia in 2011. I was at a Friends of Palestine rally, and a Jewish activist harassed us, and we got in an argument. And I called him a racist Jew with a religion of racism, hate, homicide, and ethnic cleansing. That's the short version. I posted it state counterterrorism came and charged me with racial vilification, wanting to kill all the Jews. And it was ludicrous. It's a very long story. I spent 3 years in jail, maximum
3 years in maximum security prison. And people tell me Canada's bad. Like, we have our problems, but we're not putting people in prison for 3 years because of hatred of the stuff. The only thing you might go to jail for here like that might be if you deny the Holocaust. We do have stuff on denying the Holocaust. But even then, you wouldn't get 3 years in maximum security. That's just ridiculous. Austria is way worse than Canada.
security, nearly killed in jail.
In Australia.
In Australia, the West Australia, the first person ever convicted, and nobody even knows about it. The Israeli state came out against me. It's a huge story in and of itself. But for the short version, a friend of mine at the time was Mark Glenn of the Ugly Truth podcast. He'd received letters from then President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. In jail, I did a hunger strike, and he got word and said I would be welcomed in Iran with open arms. So as soon as I got out of jail, we arranged, and a long story, I finally got to Malaysia, then on to Iran. And when I landed in Iran, it wasn't quite the pious, religious, smart, intelligent world of then President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. It was...
Yeah, so he's telling us Ahmadinejad was he's going to give us a whole different spin on him. I do remember being in 2008 at a conference with some guys from military intelligence. One of the guys with the NSA, and he was definitely telling us what we knew was going on in Iran was completely different than what our stories were. And he basically it's like, there's no Twitter revolt going on here. That's not what's happening. And yeah, that was just so fascinating and really getting into behind the scenes kind of stuff. He was one of the world's experts on Iran. So it's just kind of cool. But yeah, he was explaining the problem with because what set off the protest is that, yeah, and Kelly's going to join us in a bit. She's with her kid at the doctor's office. But he was telling us that basically why they knew the election was stolen is that there's one particular province, and the king is an official candidate. And the king always runs there, and he always gets 90% of the vote every time because he's the king. It's kind of like a joke thing. But everyone votes for their king or their caliph or whatever it is for that particular province. Then, but Ahmadinejad won that race by like 10 points. So people knew, like, if you're going to steal an election, you got to be like the Democrats in 2020, where you're just stealing just enough to make it believable and to sound confusing. You can't rig it so everyone's like, you didn't beat the king, okay? No one beats the king. But yeah, so that's the kind of thing Ahmadinejad got up to back in the day. So but he's going to give us a very different point of view on him.
The reform
what year was this, or month in year?
I arrived there in October 2016.
Right. Okay.
And Rouhani, the reformer, and Zarif, and I stayed in his hometown of Hansa, they were friends. The family I stayed with, the Lashkaris, were friends of theirs. And I realized these people were pure City of London. Rouhani was back and forth for 6 years to a Scottish university doing his PhD in Sharia law, because as we know, every pious Shia cleric does their PhD in Sharia law in a Scottish university.
What? What? You're a pious cleric, and you got your freaking degree, your PhD in United Kingdom. The City of London stuff starts more and more real all the time. That's just, oh my God.
Where he got to know Lord Levi and Jack Straw. Yes, people are hearing this. It's all on video. You can find it on
listen, I believe you. I believe you. I'm like, bloody hell.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't get it anywhere. I'm saying hello, and Rouhani's there cuddling up with Jack Straw and Lord Levi. 1 degree of separation to Lord Jacob Rothschild himself. And there's Zarif with John Kerry full-time. His kids are US citizens. That's Zarif, the foreign minister, who's now handling Peshkov, the new president.
Peshkan?
Pezeshkian, the new Iranian, who's still alive miraculously, but anyway, they are there and they are pure Chatham House boys, City of London, 100%. I was in there and there were drugs.
Yeah, Rouhani was the one that died in a mysterious helicopter crash, by the way. I just had to double check. I thought it was, but I was like, I have to double check that. And yep. And he's right about the president being still alive. No coincidence there, as I've been saying for the length of the war on my TV and this channel.
Drugs everywhere: crystal methamphetamine, black tar heroin, hashish, captogen, you name it. Drugs, sex parties. They smoke pot on the streets. I'm sorry, this was not what I was expecting.
No, it's not what I'm expecting either.
Yeah, same here. Not what I'm. Well, I was expecting like elites to be doing this behind closed doors, like elites used to do in the Soviet Union. I didn't expect it out on the street and open, but it's true. Like I was arguing with a friend of mine named Daryl, and he was like, "I don't understand why we're attacking this place." And I'm like, 60% of all drugs come through Iran. Okay, like that's where all the opium from Afghanistan transit is through. That he wanted to go attack Mexican drug cartels, and it's like, no, this is something. Iran is just as important as those. You want to hit them at the end point. I want to hit them at the starting point.
Right. So, okay, tell us a bit about. So this was when Ahmadinejad was the prime minister of Iran.
No. He was out because as I found out eventually, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was a real Iranian nationalist who was calling out the corruption of the clerics. That's why I loved him. Well, I get there and I didn't realize the politics. They have a deep state. They have like one of the deepest states of all deep states. Them and the Romans, and then in the deep state. Okay, so that's one thing I'm not surprised by. But people who are not involved in this world and watching it all, like I have for the last 28 years, and getting kind of stumbling into it, Iran's deep state is way out there. Have their own deep state, City of London deep state. That's the irony, is that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is who was going to be interviewed by PBD, Patrick Bet-David podcast. They'd already done a talk on Zoom in Farsi, and they were about to interview him when the war started. And he ran for his life, and he's still in hiding somewhere in Iran. But he was the one that tried to get everyone together, and he was overruled time and time again by the Ayatollah Khomeini and the IRGC. He was the real deal. And I didn't realize that they literally have their globalist deep state in there too. And their name is Rouhani and Zarif, and they're still there. And with the lunatic son of the Khomeini, who thinks he's going to lead the Mahdi army. So there are a bunch of whack jobs who present themselves as moderates, and they're not moderates.
Okay. Now the history, the little that I know, there was Mossadegh in 19.
Now, I did know that Ahmadinejad was kind of a populist reformer from Iranian standpoint, but he also is a terrible person and did a lot of bad things. But he's operating in the system. But yeah, I'm not surprised to hear some of the stuff. He kind of came off as an Iranian Trump, but because he was Iranian/Persian, I wasn't in favor of necessarily him.
1953, deposed by the CIA MI6, Shah came to power, and the Shah of Iran, US CIA MI6 asset clearly, and I assume SAVAK, the Iranian Secret Service, got trained by CIA and MI6.
Well, they're trained by Israelis. Israelis are heavily. See, what do you mean by?
Brendan, no, wait a minute.
Yep, the SAVAK was definitely the CIA helped train the Mossad, and Mossad definitely was so tied into that. That's why you have Iran-Contra that goes through Israel. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and it's in popular media. God, the movie with Bruce Willis and Gene Hackman. Not Bruce Willis, Gene Hackman's one of the guys. God. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is in it. And yeah, JP, yes, even the Brits complain about the City of London. I have a friend named Steph who I will be staying with in July in England, and she does her own political show, but she's not doing that one right now. She's just kind of sticking to royal content. I'm hoping to get her back into that stuff. And I told her, "You've heard about the City of London conspiracy," and I'm like, and she's like, "Yeah, but I'm not too sure about that." I wasn't too sure. I was not too sure until Lloyd's canceled all those contracts. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he's going to go down the real rabbit hole on all intelligence agency here, JP. Just a spoiler warning.
You're shattering all my illusions and assumptions.
The CIA, you've got to understand, even within Mossad, there's different sections, there's different alliances. When you say America, what you're really talking about is, we use the term Israel, but you have a very specific, it's a cult. It's a Sabbatean Frankist drugs, sex cult, and it's infiltrated everywhere. Everywhere. It's inside the Mossad. It's inside French intelligence, German intelligence, UK intelligence. It's inside ASIO in Australia. It's a private, globalist, Chatham House, Royal Institute for International Affairs, City of London, David and Evelyn de Rothschild, 13 families of Europe. It is a private network. So when we say the CIA or the Mossad or whatever, we have to understand it's weaved through. I mean, MI6 was complaining about all the Russian money coming in. And at the same time, they're corrupting all the politicians. MI6, MI5. So you have these different factions that are constantly fighting. And it's that private intelligence network that's privatized the NSA. It's privatized Department of Homeland Security. It's private, Variant. All these Israeli companies are running all the computer databases. They're running all the industrial controller chips.
Okay, well, we can talk about
very
that.
specific.
Okay,
yeah. So yeah, that's definitely kind of the thing. We seem to have stumbled into some sort, with Jeffrey Epstein being in the main case, like pulling back the curtain and seeing that who the Wizard of Oz is. We've kind of stumbled into this world of like this criminal network that has created a lot of intelligence agencies and created this official cover for all their illicit activities. And we see it in shows like Narcos. They can't help but brag about it. Like all the serial killers, they all want to be secretly caught in the end, right? So that's what we're kind of seeing here. Like I've said it before, I've seen a lot of the satanic stuff that goes on, and it's like, it seems to be for whatever their belief is, whatever their spell is, they have to do it in the open in front of us to make in their belief, the magic work. And, I recently saw Tucker Carlson last Friday interview a Catholic priest exorcist. And that was fascinating for me, because it was just sort of like, well, if you're a Christian, you got to believe in demons. And he starts talking about like preternatural abilities, and that, there was this war by psychiatry, who were all atheists, to try and destroy all the to undermine religion. And who would be benefiting from that? Why not the fallen angels that are out there, the demons and the devils? And I'm just like, oh, well, if I'm a Christian, and I am, and I do, I guess I got to believe in this stuff. But he said, like, out of the 600 to 800 cases reported in America every year or every month, it's like 4, because there's so many more billions of people out there. And there's compared to in the past, when we're a few hundred million, and you could believe in demons because there was like, you might have a good chance, if you lived in a big city, to encounter some, right? But yeah, so it's a very interesting situation out there. I do definitely believe in getting in the spirit world, and these demons are forming. And he says one of the ways you could tell is that I got this woman. She's Spanish. She's barely Spanish American. She's like in her 20s. She has a high school education, if that. And she's speaking in a 3,500-year-old dead language that no one really understands. She starts speaking in this old language, and it's like, holy crap. Okay. So I'm not really going to go down that role too hard. Maybe he is. I don't know. It sounds like he was more like a report, like from what I could tell when I did look into him on Grok, I did before I went live. It looks like he is an O'Keefe Media Group type. So he goes around and provocatively engaged with people, and he does writing too. So he basically, like, when he confronted the two Jewish activists, apparently, according to Grok, it was at a supermarket, not at a protest. But I don't know about that. But he does have the film, and he's out there. He's not. He might be intelligence, like as a false friend. I don't know, but he is interesting to listen to, and so I'll continue on with the video. No, it's just my stream. Okay.
Okay, so back to Iran, right? And bloody hell. So the Mossad trained Savak.
Well, generic, yeah. Contractors.
Contractors, okay. They trained Savak. And then my understanding is the Shah of Iran was trying to be a little bit independent from the city of London.
Naughty, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. So then Ayatollah Khomeini flew from Paris, where he was in exile. Oh, yes.
Commune. It was a commune. It was a literal kibbutz outside Paris. It was literally a commune, a kibbutz.
Okay. So and then he took over, and we had this Shia Islamic State, which is now I know a bit of my father. I didn't mention this to you when we started. My father is a Shia Muslim, passed away. My mum was Sunni. And my father just revered the Ayatollah Khomeini and what he did, because he was the leader of the Shia faith, and that Iran was born anew as this clean, pious, faithful state that was run in service of God and in remembrance of God according to the Shia tradition, and there wasn't going to be any of that debauchery and licentiousness that had characterized the Shah regime. And it was the enemy of the West.
Nice thought. And I'm sure Ayatollah Khomeini was in fact sincere. He was clearly very nervous and said he thought he was going to be assassinated when he landed, and that's clear. He flew in on an Air France flight from a Paris commune, kibbutz, with a German intelligence film crew, and we must not underestimate German intelligence's role and who ran German intelligence even way back then.
Nazis. He's talking about Nazis.
I believe he was absolutely sincere. Under French orders, Rothschild orders, Saddam had booted him out of Najaf. He had nowhere to go, so he ends up in Paris, France. Remember, the French built Osirak reactor for Saddam Hussein. And again, the French also assisted Israel to get their Kafir fighter, the Lion fighter, which was the Dassault Mirage with the forward cannons. I knew the Scottish engineer who helped build that aircraft in Israel at the time. And there's a whole backstory to that one. I got lots of stories. What you're finding, you can see the network, this private network is just everywhere. It's in everything. And you see the speeches he's made. He made delineations between Jewish people, Judaism, Zionism, but he never really attacked the Israeli state directly. They dressed up a lot, they shouted a lot, they hopped up and down, they burnt flags a lot. It was like cosplay, it was like theater. I don't doubt the sincerity of the people at the time. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was one of them. As a teenager, he was at university when they took over the embassy.
Yeah, and a lot of people believe he was in that embassy as one of the students. That's something I've definitely heard, is that he and his guys came in at that time in 2008 when he was president, because he wanted to that particular generation had aged into the leadership roles, whereas we're trying to, Canada has it where we have Gen X running things for the most part. I don't know, I'll have to see Mark Carney, when was Carney born? Maybe he might be in very late boomer, but United States has all these geriatrics running around, and it reminds me a lot of the Soviet Union, including Trump.
So there are real people who wanted change. There are real people who truly believed in justice, just like there are within sects of Judaism, just as there are in sects and political movements all over the world. The vast majority of the people are sincere.
Yeah.
But every time where you find a well-funded organization, I mean, ask simple questions. Hezbollah, how do you transfer billions of dollars around and buy weapons without anyone noticing? They know exactly how it's getting transferred around. It's going through Swiss, German, and French banks in particular. So once you understand you can't move billions without the permission of a private banking cartel, you can begin to understand if you are well funded, if you are well known, if you have billions of dollars in weapons, you are not an organic movement. End of story.
Right. Okay. So Iran would have got its wealth from oil and
Yep.
oil and gas and perhaps a little of something else, but mostly oil and gas it gets as well.
Yes.
So now they got all this money and they
Some of the
got
largest fields in the world. The gas fields are some of the largest in the world. Dwarf
Right.
anything.
right, and they're going to use that to develop their country and run the state and all of that, right? But there's so much money, they're going to cream some off for themselves, and then they're going to use it as well to defend their country. So they're going to buy arms. So of course that's where they have to move the money around, and they get sanctioned. So they have to go behind the houses.
They
do
never have
undercover.
sanctions. Sorry, I was there. They have no sanctions in Iran. Maybe they do now. When I was there were no sanctions.
No, I mean
Everything
there
was
were
available.
international sanctions against Iran, like knocked out of the SWIFT network.
Yeah, it never stopped them though, did it?
No, it didn't stop them because they went around the houses. So
You know
it's,
that $500 million worth of oil flowed to Germany every year. Every year. What sanctions? The Brits and the French and the Germans were caught 5 times trying to circumvent sanctions. And in 2023, the Americans finally said no or else. Constantly trying to. They're so deep in with Iran. That's why they're all screaming, no, not our precious baby Iran, because they use Iran to force the Sunni Arab world and pan-Arab nationalism to force it into the arms of Israel and sign a deal. They're always after Saudi. We go for Saudi. When they say we'll take Tel Aviv, no, we go Riyadh, Saudi. They're always after the Saudis. Why? Because that's their job, to terrorize pan-Arab nationalism, Sunni Arabs into the arms of the Abraham Accords with Netanyahu, Likud, City of London. That's their job.
and what they don't want are the Sunnis and the Shias aligning together.
Oh, God forbid. And that's why they got rid of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Okay, say more about what he stood for and how they got rid of him.
How they got rid of him? Oh, they collapsed the economy completely. The rial, or the toman, as they call it in Iran, the toman, they just collapsed the economy, put extra sanctions on, and then everyone went, boo, boo Ahmadinejad. He exposed the corruption amongst the clerics and by inference, the Ayatollah. And one of his advisors, who's did an interview 11 months ago, and you're going to have to take him at his word, but it's the same stories I've heard countless times. He exposed the IRGC trafficking in drugs, captagen, heroin, and a hashish. They love their hashish in Iran, by the way.
Well, I'm not surprised about that. Even Doug Ford was a hashish dealer before he got married, and his Baptist wife put that down.
Cheap as chips. It's all over the streets. And I was told directly they don't mind hashish because it keeps people quiet and placates them. And I went, oh, okay. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, sounds like alcohol to me.
What they do in every country. Eventually he went after the clerics and got up in the parliament and called out all the corruption in the parliament building, which is the shape of a pyramid with 33 windows, inaugurated in 2004. And he wanted to end the war in Syria. He didn't want to take the side of Assad, who he considered a criminal, and an object of the West, because he had all his bank accounts in the City of London, like all the rest. And he was constantly overruled. He wanted to make sure humanitarian aid got to the Houthis, and he was overruled by Qasem Soleimani. He said, no, we'll keep them starving. We can use that as a weapon. And they kept shipping the weapons into the Houthis. So that is a real Iranian nationalist fighting a deep state. And then the corruption it's the Vatican times 1,000. The bishops and the Pope is just so corrupt in Iran.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the Roman Catholic Church. I'm very glad to be Protestant, and even though we have weird things like our Archbishops of Canterbury is a very woke woman, we definitely it's. I'll take that over Roman Catholicism any day.
Iran. And if you want to know the number one hatred of the Iranian people, and I'd say 70% are absolutely anti-Ayatollah. They want it all gone. They consider, this is what I heard constantly. The Persians do have a streak of supremacism, the home of the Aryans, the home of the Indo-European language. and Hitler called it the home of the Aryans. They have a love affair with Germany. Angela Merkel is their patron saint. I like to joke. They adore Germany and Angela Merkel and Hitler. They don't believe Hitler killed any Jews at all. It's not like they celebrate the killing of Jews. On the contrary, Jews are highly protected in Iran. They run Iran Press TV. I know, I was there. And you're going.
Have you never been? How have you never been? I just doing the Douglas Murray thing. I can't do him very well, but I just like there is something to be saying about being there and seeing firsthand. But I just couldn't help myself when you put yourself into that category. I was there, so I know.
Going to find along the way that they want it gone and they want to go back to the Shah. And that's all I heard all day. Now, more conservative areas, more rural areas, it's very different. And Mahmoud Ahmadinejad made sure the oil wealth got to the poor and therefore the elites hate him. I mean, Rafsanjani, their president, was a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire. He owned half of Iran. Oh, a pious Shia cleric. Oh, yes, of course. I mean, the hypocrisy that oozes out of Shia Islam is the same that came out of the Vatican, which is the same that comes out of the Wahhabis.
Yep.
It's human beings, but don't
beings.
place Iran on a pedestal. It's corrupt as hell. And that's the number one complaint. Not headscarves, not being able to show the butt cheeks. That's not the big one. The big one is the economy and the corruption of the clerics. And that's what Iranians hate with a passion.
Okay. Now,
Which does explain why one of the big problems of their people is that no one's going to church anymore because they've gotten tired of to the mosques anymore. The mosque attendance is hugely down in Iran, from what I understand, in comparison to other places. So, yeah, it's just the corruption, this fantastic level of corruption going on there.
go back to Hezbollah. Who set it up? How was it set up? How does it fund itself? How is it involved in drug laundering?
Drugs, heavy drug trafficking out of the Bekaa Valley,
Give
in
us
there
a
with
bit
the
of a history.
IRGC.
Sorry.
Hezbollah came up in early 80s, roundabout. We're not going to get the timing exactly right. But it started out as this movement. You remember the barracks bombing of the Marines. I remember that happening. And suddenly Reagan withdrew. And it killed a lot of French paratroopers as well, by the way, at the same time. So if you hear me say France or Germany, I'm talking about a deep state within those countries.
Right.
With the UK as well. UK is just as
European
infected.
elite deep state.
Yep.
Yes, the crackers in Armani, and they all believe they're related to King David, and they do a lot of cocaine and they murder a lot of prostitutes on their estates. You remember Belgium and all the Belgian manors and all the prostitutes buried at the back of their $1 million mansions? We'll talk about it another time.
Oh, God, Brendan.
Yeah, I vaguely have heard some of the stuff about the Belgians. We'll talk about that another time. Oh, my God. Just blowing poor Rich's mind.
No, I don't. But let's stick here.
All right.
Belgium,
what an interesting place Belgium is. The home of IMEC, by the way. If you want to know where the most advanced chips are developed, it's not the United States, it's in Belgium, IMEC, IMEC.
Okay.
So with these things in mind, so you have Hezbollah. So you have Nasrallah rises up, his son is killed. He does a lot of fish shaking. Remember, I'm interviewed by El Mayadeen in 2020. Very good interview. Excellent reporter. She interviewed me for 20 minutes on how Israel controls critical infrastructure in the US. They were involved in 9/11. Remember, all of these Muslim Islamic groups all understand Israel, basically, this is the short version, Israel did 9/11. Now, that's the short version. Brits were involved, French were involved, Germans were involved, and also were also warning, including the Mossad was also warning. So these are narrow sects within these places. But you'll never hear a single news report, a single media personality, or a single Muslim cleric or sheikh come out and say Israel did 9/11. Try and find one. Does this not strike you as very strange? And if you dare raise issues of Talmud, Jewish supremacism, filth within Talmud, how they call the Palestinians Amalek and worthy of death, kill men, women, and children, they will cut you off immediately and say, oh, there are extremists everywhere. Let's move along. Why do they do that?
This is Iranian TV that's apparently doing this. So Iranian TV is not covering all this anti-Israeli Jew which you would think they would be all about, the plight of the Palestinians. But apparently that's not what they're telling their own people, according to this guy.
Who is actually controlling these media outlets? Who is controlling Hezbollah? How do you defeat Israel and the United States by force of arms? I'm on the record 2018 on, saying this is ludicrous. You can't defeat the United States and Israel by force of arms. You use information warfare. I'm talking to professors in Beirut. We're in Iran thinking we're going to have this discussion. I'm talking to government analysts, the Persian Gulf Study Center, Mr. Passaport, Aga Passaport. All right. And they're all telling me, yeah, Israel did 9/11. Try and find anybody talking about Israel doing 9/11. So what I'm trying to get across to you is these networks stifle, they never move on appropriate issues. All it is weapons, killing, shouting Allah Akbar with a long beard and a little turban, and telling everyone to get out of Israel before they all get killed. Every time Likud, every time Bibi Netanyahu, Senor Milikowski from the back alleys of Poland, every single time he goes up for indictment, out would come Nasrallah, and shaking his fists, and Bibi says, oh my goodness, everyone, we could be attacked at any time. And he'd fire some missiles over the border every single time. You cannot transfer billions and billions and billions of dollars in weapons and money in Bitcoin without somebody noticing. You can't do it. Swiss banks, German banks, French banks, even before the London banks, are the kings of transferring that money for Hezbollah and the IRGC. The kings. They were funding ISIS. The same people were funding ISIS.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what why I follow Tom Longo. He follows that stuff for me and then puts it into a position where I can understand it. So that's kind of how I see a lot of stuff. But once you get really cracked into the financialist agenda, and so the city of London, whatever you want to call them, it's just like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I have arguments with people that are like, I don't understand any of this stuff. And it's like, dude, like, why wouldn't, if you were rich, I'm sure if you were a multi-billionaire with all this money, you'd be doing this kind of stuff. It's like there's all these networks out there.
Okay, now, so back to Hezbollah, the story of Hezbollah. So they got formed in the early 80s. I do know from the Iran-Contra affair that the CIA was supplying them with weaponry that was being transited through Israel to the IRGC, and I think to Hezbollah as well.
The Ayatollah with the Iran-Contra affair. They've been working with Israel the whole damn time. It's never stopped under the Shah and under the Ayatollah. It's never stopped.
So then when did Hezbollah and how did they start moving into the drug trade? Can you give me
the history of the Bekaa Valley? Look, I'm not here to create division. I have Shia and Sunni friends. And they all warned me I was wasting my time. Before I left Australia, they said, Brendan, you're wasting your time. They're all corrupt, every last one of them. And I said, settle, bros. You've had your families wiped out. You're a little cynical. I get it. But some West Australian sunshine. I'm going to head on over there. I've got an invite from the Iranian president, former. It's all good. Well, little did I know. From Malaysia, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, one of my heroes. And they won't touch it. I was welcomed by the Royal Malay Police, hugged. You're always welcome in Malaysia, Mr. O'Connell. But no one would wanted to talk about Israel. And finally, Tun gets an interview with Turkish television and he says, well, if we talk about them, they'll destroy our economy. And it was like, well, we could have told me that before I threw my life and my career away, that we can't talk about it.
Okay, so the Bekaa Valley, where's that? Is that in Lebanon?
That's in the northeast of Lebanon.
Okay, so
hash galore. But the point is, you're using. Kay Griggs told us. Kay Griggs warned us back in '97. It's all about secondary weapons sales, drugs, motorcycle gangs, organized crime. All the big banks from London to Moscow to Frankfurt, Germany, Paris, France, down into the Bank of.
Yeah, JP, it's true. We're not really talking too much about Russia in these discussions. Maybe because Putin isn't part of the network. I mean, the Russian deep state openly runs their country, but they don't seem. They're not anti-civilizationalist people like the City of London crowd. So we don't. Yeah, it's interesting. We don't usually hear Russian much in these things because I don't think they're part of it, and. They're probably and China. So their countries were being. John Kiriakou talks about this. He went to Afghanistan with like the rank of a 1-star, and he wanted to see he talked to a farmer, and the farmer said something like he went up to one of the farmers and said, "Hey, why aren't you only growing heroin? Why don't you grow some cash crops or tobacco or something like that?" And the guy's like, "Hey, I told the Americans told me if I told them where the Taliban were, I could grow all the poppy I wanted." And he's like, "What Americans?" And then suddenly his handlers are like, "Oh, we got a threat of Taliban activity in the area. You need to get you out of here, General." So, yeah, all that Afghanistan opium was, and then he wrote his report, and someone's like, "This report's going to get buried, John." He was like, "Why is that?" Because no one wants to admit all that opium we're growing in Afghanistan is going to China and Russia. So, yeah, Russia's pro-civilization. They're trying to get out of the fact that the communists killed too many of their people. And yeah, and maybe people are falling out of windows in Russia or not. I'm not too sure, but it is interesting. We don't hear more on that kind of stuff from this stuff. And these guys just seem to be focused on Middle Eastern issues. We haven't been, but Russia has been definitely pushed off the front page, and now it's all about America and the Middle East, while Putin is supposedly putting together a summer offensive once the Rasputin is over, that it might be very intense, as I've heard. That's some of the developments I hear. And I of course, have not been paying as much attention to Russia, Ukraine as I used to, because, there was a war in the Middle East going on that actually can be a little bit effective versus just an endless meat grinder of Russia, Ukraine.
Of international settlements, Wall Street, it's the same network. Selling drugs, Iran-Contra is international. It's not just Reagan. It's not just Colonel Oliver North. It's not Mena, Arkansas. Let's not forget Barry Seal, lunch with the Gov. I met his employer in jail. There you go. There's another video. Roger Reeves, I got his book published. Yeah, the employer of Barry Seal, who introduced him to the Medellin cartel. Again, another story. So you've got Mena, Arkansas. You've got the
Brendan. I'm enjoying this immensely, right? But talking to you is like herding kittens, and you're just one person.
What I'm trying to say, it's all related to the Bekaa
No,
Valley.
I get it's all related, right? But okay. So, but I just want to understand this, and just, if I can, keep you on this track. So with Hezbollah, so they're dealing in drugs and everything, and then where are those drugs being transited? Because up
into Europe mostly, or all through the region. The Captagon's a big one to get everyone high on drugs, so they're raping and pillaging wherever they go. ISIS are beheading. They're high on and injecting crystal methamphetamine, not just popping pills, injecting IV, big one, piles of syringes all over the place, and the drugs are going up into Europe. I mean, all this is related. Iran-Contra, it's all the same network.
Okay,
it's the same network.
And there's something about Hezbollah in Paraguay as well, I understand. Do you know?
Oh, they're all through the region. They're right here in Mexico. They go through Cuba, where Professor Joaquim had his dacha, the Lebanese professor. He's a good guy. And they come down onto the coast, Cancun, tourist areas and other areas, and they'll go up through the borders. It's not all hype about Hezbollah's in America. I don't believe they'll do anything because they know what'll happen to Iran. But you have to understand the role of German and French remember, Muhammad Atta spent 4 years in Hamburg. That's another story, the whole 9/11 stuff. But you have to know the German jihad and the history of animosity between the Brits and the Germans in the Middle East. Again, it's very actually easy to understand once you see the network. But the Hezbollah's all through the region. They're assisting Mexican cartels. They're over there in Colombia. They're in Venezuela. They're in Cuba. That's not a lie. They're all through. The Lebanese population in Mexico City is huge. I didn't realize how big the Lebanese population was here. And how many Lebanese are married to Mexican nationals.
Bloody hell. And it's such a tiny little country as well, with a small population.
Oh, they are the Irish of the Middle East.
The Irish of the Middle East.
Some of my beloved Lebanese friends, I love them.
They're diaspora all over the place. Okay.
Yeah, they are. That's so similar.
What about the connection between Hezbollah and IRGC, and what do they?
Well, he's going to get into that, and a bit of that, but he points out, Venezuela was the important node in this network where you've been seeing Trump take out the major centers that make up this thing. There's not a lot of drugs grown in Venezuela, but its main transshipment point. It's the logistics hub of how you get stuff out of South America. Money Penny on when I last had him on was talking about a lot of that kind of stuff. So, or Money Circus. Sorry, not Money Penny. That's a James Bond thing.
The IRGC get up to? Because my understanding, my very naive understanding, is the IRGC are the Revolutionary Guard, the resistance force. They brought about the Islamic Republic of Iran, doing away with the vice and the corruption of the Shah's regime.
Oh, well, that's how they all start. Well-meaning people, the youth, like with ISIS, everyone believes ISIS was lopping everyone's head off. They weren't all like that, and they weren't all ISIS. There were people who wanted a better world. Who doesn't? Who isn't sick of this stinking corruption? But you find that wherever it's well-funded and well-organized, there they are, the magical crackers in Armani. There they are, funding. So then they take the high aspirations of particularly of the youth, young fighters, sick of their faith and their religion and their language and their culture being humiliated day after day, the killings day after day. They all end up dying. They get popped with cocaine and captogen and sent into battle to die for the.
And we're watching it happen in America and Europe. I talked to several people I know who are in proto-revolutionary cells right now. Like, that's happening.
Elites at the top, and it's the same everywhere they go, and it's no different in Iran. So I'm sure there were the best of intentions, but nothing goes anywhere. I mean, you remember Che Guevara, the famous conversation he had with Fidel Castro when they, who Eisenhower loved, I might add, initially, when Khrushchev was visiting, and Che, whatever you think of him, I believe he was sincere, a very sincere person. He wanted, he saw the slavery of his own people and how they were being treated. He said, I see the revolution has brought out the finest china. He was saying that to Fidel Castro. So he was bringing out all the finest plates as they brought in their new patron. And he's saying, so we just sold out one for another. And this is what I mean about the sincerity of ordinary people. Ordinary people are fundamentally good. But wherever you go, when it's well-funded, you're going to find sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sure.
And the city of London.
Okay, good. Now, Hezbollah and IRGC, what's their connection, and how do the IRGC, how do they operate? Are they doing the drug trafficking and the money
directly
as well?
Directly. They are literally, and they're not even hiding it. Ahmadinejad's old advisor and his accounts, which I've heard countless times, I've heard from Sunni and Shia Lebanese as well. It's done completely in the open. They just fill it with crates. They don't try to hide it. It's got the approval at the highest levels. And a lot of that stuff ends up all through the Middle East region to create as much trouble as possible. And then they ship it up into Europe. And you're going to find through Colombia and Venezuela. Remember, Venezuela doesn't grow a lot of drugs. Most of it's from Colombia. But Venezuela is the main ports at Caracas. Now, who runs those ports? You're going to find an Israeli company. Who runs the ports at Antwerp and Rotterdam, where nearly all the cocaine, tons and tons, and this is where the Trump administration did it beautifully with Venezuela, who now controls the 40 billion euro a year drug trade into Europe, which keeps the banks alive. Well, the Trump administration runs it now. Everyone misses this. And who runs the ports, including their...
Not everyone misses this. A lot of people have noticed that, but yeah. That's why we have people like Tom Luongo and even myself commenting on this. So that's how we're doing it. Is now Trump administration now controls the drug trade and starves the banks.
Their databases, their human resource department databases, shipping data. Who runs it all? Israeli companies, ICTS, Atwell Security, and the same people who ran all the airports during 9/11. These are the links.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that's the network. You want to talk about IRGC, Hezbollah? That's the network. And it's all Israeli. It's all half quasi-Israeli, Russians, Portuguese, Spanish Jews, you name it, out of Rotterdam, Antwerp. It's all linked all the way to Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico. It's all linked to Wall Street, City of London.
Okay. But wait a minute, Brenton. The man on the TV, the BBC, they tell me that IRGC and Israel are mortal enemies, and that Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map. and that the Iranians, and I know this bit to be false, hate the Jews, which is bullshit, right?
Yeah, and here comes the bombshell, which kind of blew my mind when he mentions it. I'm like, it makes sense. It does make sense.
Because there are 100 synagogues in Iran, and they're
They run Iran Press TV. I just want to let you know. I know I was
did.
there.
Yes, you did. You did say that, right? No, because they are our Abrahamic brothers and sisters, right? So, but that's the BBC. The BBC tell us that they're mortal enemies, and you're telling me they're doing deals with each other and helping
British
out each
Brainwashing
other?
Corporation. I say, I watch the BBC. I read books. I know what's going on, you filthy anti-Semites.
Well, I did record a video with Colonel Towner Watkins, which is, I think, went up in the last week. It's Thursday, the 9th of April, by the way, when we're recording this conversation. And it was, you said, the spies, the spooks, they run, own, control, and manage the mainstream media. Okay.
Yeah, that's well documented. Francis Stoner Saunders.
Thanks for watching, Professor Pierogi. Thanks for joining. I tend to interact a fair bit with the chat, but I do only have the one monitor, so that's what's going on. If you want to make comments and talk, go ahead.
The Cultural Cold War. They were running conferences, magazines, movie theaters, you name it, since forever.
But before we go off on that avenue, right?
Worldwide.
Back to, by the way, were you naughty at school?
Yes, Sister Mary said, I had the voice of an angel and the heart of the devil.
What an acknowledgement that is.
She wrapped us over the knuckles at Sunday school. Yeah.
Okay, now, so then the Iran-Israel war. How does the City of London play into this? Why are these... Okay, so they pretend to be enemies, but in the background they're doing deals with each other, working for the
Constantly.
same shadowy network. So then what's Trump doing? And then how come, and this was a tell for me, of all the American misadventures in the Middle East since I've been all my adult life, this is the only one where Britain's not been shoulder to shoulder with the US.
Oh, isn't it amazing? Keir Starmer, I heard you making jokes.
He's such a man of honor and ethics and integrity. He's not
getting his sex
interested in war
change.
at all.
He's going to transgender to a male, you said. I watched that interview.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was in Mike Stevens.
Could you imagine Margaret Thatcher taking on Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer would be crying. He'd be
he wouldn't turn up.
He would, but it's like, who is this wet rag? Well, who is this Fabian socialist? I mean, there's a great big channel's recently done a thing on Fabian socialism. Beautiful.
I've done
Keir
Fabian
Starmer.
on my channel with Matt Eric as well.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I saw that one. I was going to watch that one next.
You mean you don't watch, follow, subscribe, hype, comment, like every single... Oh my God, this is shocking. Please let us know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if Brendan should subscribe, comment, and like, and you need to do so too. Okay.
I know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's we got coffee mugs on special. Cyber is the real domain of power with BB on there. So if you want some coffee mug, or BB Twick Twampy. Yeah. But yes. So the favorite Keir Starmer.
So what's going on?
I definitely think Rupert Lowe will take on the City of London in an indirect fashion, or he's just going to be like, by being a nationalist for Britain and getting rid of shutting down the immigrant flows. That will be kind of how he goes in. So I don't know if I'm sure as a Brit, he's aware of City of London stuff, but and a wealthy guy, but he's just as a nationalist, he'll be there doing what he can on the national front. If I really do think reform is going to come in, probably form a coalition with Tories. Rupert Lowe will be his next cycle, kind of thing. They won't. They'll bring in some I think reform is going to bring in Thatcher-like economics into the situation, but that's not going to be enough, and that coalition will probably collapse. and then Rupert Lowe will have enough MPs with around him who will be able to form into the new government. I think that's kind of the direction of travel for England. I mean, they have years though. Like Restore has 4 more years to go before they, or Restore and Reform have 4 more years before this happens. But with all those Tory defections, I think it's going to be like a Reform Tory coalition. They'll do some good. They'll be good on economics and maybe cut down on the bureaucracy, and get rid of the quangos. But they won't have the true revolution of basically saying that we come in and we're going to wipe everything. We're going to return to pre-Blairite England. That's kind of how I see that going as of now.
On with this war, then, from what
Sorry,
you
I thought I was in Team America. Keir Starmer, here's the timeline. It's brilliant. The man I love to hate, though, is, of course, the Canadian Prime Minister, the London central banker pretending to be the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, the most obnoxious human being. Now, he's cocky as hell, but he's scared. He said in January in Davos, January 2026, remember, Trump has come out, the Trump administration, Trump said the only reason the EU was created was to screw the United States.
Yeah.
I don't like Trump personally for multiple reasons, but sometimes when he opens his mouth, it's like only Trump could say or do that. There will never be another Trump, ever. Trust me, people, whether you love or hate him or indifferent, there will never be another Trump. This is
It's
history.
like there'll never be another Muhammad Ali or another Elvis.
Yeah. Whether you like him or not, he's one in a million. He is the destructor. He is the wrecking ball. But I think we're all looking for.
Choose the form of the destructor. I couldn't help it. First thing that popped in my head, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. How could he be the thing? Well, they're both New Yorkers.
Forward to more settled times, and we will, because this is the way it's run. We're being brought to a crescendo before the happy ending, God willing. And Trump says you tried to screw us. That's the only reason you were invented. That was January, February 2025. JD Vance goes to Davos and he's just screaming at the European Union, calling them everything under the sun. It was incredible. I was just going, whoa. And so in January there, and all the tariffs, brilliant. Tariffs are beautiful. That's how America became powerful in the first place. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because they had such a huge economy. It didn't need to trade with anyone. But there was good old Davos again. JD Vance is reaming the EU again. He's basically saying we're at war with you. The real war is not Iran. The real war, City of London, European Union, that network. So then Carney in January 2026, here's the timeline, comes out and says either we get a seat at the table or we are on the menu. And he said, we have to try and get everyone together. And so in January later, just after that, both he and Keir Starmer do a separate visit to see Xi Jinping. Now, that's the key, because that's where all the trinkets are made. And the big problem with the US dollar is not the oil, is not the other stuff. It is hyperinflation linked to supply chain cutoff. That is the worry. Forget about data, petrodollar, it's supply chain. And unfortunately, China, even though they have pulled back a lot, and they do want to re-engage, but they tried to pull back nuts, bolts, screws. Look at your computer components. They're still made in China. They've gone a lot less. So they're running to see Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping's happy because he wants leverage. He knows who the boss is. He knows who the boss is, America, but he wants some leverage himself. That's why he released TikTok in 2023. And suddenly everyone's talking about Israel. But what I'm trying to say is that's the timeline. They're going in, and what happened 3 weeks later? They knew it was coming. Boom! March 14th, when was it? February 28th?
Yeah.
The bombing begins. They knew that was coming. That was the last globalist gasp to try to head off the Trump administration, to get leverage, to say, please don't annihilate us. And the Trump administration is, you are on the menu. You are not having a seat at the table.
Who started that? Iran started? The City of London got Iran to start the war?
No, America, they knew the United States was going to take out Iran. They knew. This Bibi had nothing to do with it. Bibi flew 7 times to Washington to say, please don't attack our asset, Iran.
That's the mind-blowing thing. He's saying that Bibi Netanyahu needs Iran, and that's what's going on here. That it's his asset. it's, and in a lot of ways, you can make that argument without the City of London theory. It's just like Iran is the thing that's kept Bibi in power for all these years. Having Iran there is an adversarial problem, and that so saying all our people out there crashing out on the internet claiming that Israel got us into the war or the U.S. into the war. Oh, I guess Canada's technically like we're begging. Mark Carney did come out, unlike most of NATO. Mark Carney has been basically saying, "Yeah, oh yeah, we have nothing to contribute, but we're fully on board with we support the U.S. strikes." And I always know that when people come to me about Canada, I'm like, in the end, we're going to do whatever America wants. We can talk about all our nationalism and elbows up and all this other stuff. No, we're going to do what the United States is going to do because there's no other choice.
Oh, wait, no. This makes. He said, "Don't attack."
Don't attack them. As Trump said, Soleimani, we were ready to go. And 24 hours, Bibi said, no, we're not helping. We're not helping. Bibi and Iran are like that. That's their asset to get the Wahhabis, the Saudis, and the UAE to sign the peace deal. And also so Jared Kushner can extort billions out of them with Elon Musk and pay for X. It's a huge extortion racket with Chabad Lubavitch ably assisting with the brown paper bag movement into Donald Trump's meme coins accounts. The Trump administration attacked Iran, the globalist baby. That's their leverage point right there on the Straits of Hormuz. That's how they leverage and force the Wahhabis into the arms of their asset, Israel. Israel has no power. It is a military base. It's a military base. It does what the City of London bidding, but not anymore. Now Bibi's right in the hands of US elites. Sarah Netanyahu is an American intelligence asset. That's why Trump is saying, it doesn't matter if we don't have good relations with Bibi. I have a secret weapon. And he's grabbing Sarah. He's right next to Sarah. And there's Bibi looking very nervous. Daughter. No, Sarah Netanyahu, his wife, she hates him. Okay. She booted him. She kicked him out of a car, a motorcade, in her high heels, accusing him of infidelity, booted him out of the car in her high heels, of which I give her mucho respect. And lo and behold, everyone's saying, if we want to get appointed, we have to go through Sarah Netanyahu. And everyone thought this was a joke. It wasn't a joke. Even Sheldon Adelson said that. Sarah Netanyahu is an American intelligence asset.
Well, that's crazy enough for me right there. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, you're saying that Rupert got cut off in England Freedom of Information request. Not surprised. I guess Professor Perobi had to leave, but the system is, we're breaking apart all these choke points that the British and the City of London imperialists have set up. Like the idea, and we're doing it here, we're building the nuclear power plants. And that's happening in America, that's happening in Canada, that's happening a lot of places that they're going to, we're getting ready to cut ourselves off. Doug Ford is the biggest nationalist in Canada. He's just like Donald Trump, but he doesn't even realize this. And so we're going through this. We're going to eliminate the choke points. And we're going to space, we're going to the moon, we're going to Mars, and we're getting out of this stupid financialist system. We'll get another stupid system, I'm sure, afterwards, but no more of this. The age of plenty will happen if I live to my 80s. We'll be living there going like, oh my God, what we have our flying cars. They're coming.
I'm just quoting what I watch on the TV. Everyone else can read what they like.
But not on the BBC, right?
Not on the BBC. And it's amazing me that people miss this stuff. And all Trump has done is complain, along with Steve Bannon, is about the deceitfulness of Bibi Netanyahu. We ambushed Steve Bannon at CPAC. Lee Levino, an incredible guy, does a lot of AI film, one of the top people in the world. Lee, you may not have seen it, ambushed Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, on video, Corey Mills, the whole lot of them, and said Israel is completely penetrated by Russian intelligence, City of London, and they're all through our system, our critical infrastructure. And that's why Charlie Kirk was murdered. Okay. Because of Lee Levino. That's enough. You can watch it. It's on my channel.
Yes. Well, And which
It's on
is
video.
on YouTube or Substack?
Yeah, but
Substack.
it's YouTube, Substack, and Patreon. But that was the timeline. Carney, these are central bankers, and there's little weak Keir Starmer, and he's all scared. They wouldn't allow the
Whoops. I want to describe. I kind of screwed that up. Let's go back.
infrastructure, and that's why Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Okay.
Because of Lee Levino. That's enough. You can watch it. It's on my channel.
Yes. Well, and which
It's on
is
video.
on
I'll probably go
YouTube
to the
or
internet.
Substack?
Yeah, but
Substack.
it's YouTube, Substack, and Patreon. But that was the timeline. Carney, these are central bankers, and there's little weak Keir Starmer, and he's all scared. They wouldn't allow the US to use their base in, what do you call it, in the Pacific. And they were going to give it to China.
Diego Garcia in the
Garcia.
Indian
And
Ocean.
when I saw that, because people tell me, oh, did you watch this? Oh, that's a joke. As if the Brits would do that. That'd be stupid. And I go, what?
Oh, and paying
It's
for the
real.
privilege.
And pay for the privilege. And you think, what the hell? And then you realize this is desperation. Desperation. This is the last gasp. This is historical.
So
this
Trump's
is the Trump
out.
administration.
Is out to destroy the city of London.
He's not out to. He's doing it right now. He said, you're on the menu, Carney. And don't think an invasion of Canada is out of the question. Oh, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Don't think
Night
Western
before I got
Canada
married.
is going to secede.
The night before I got married, I went to see South Park the movie.
What a
How ridiculous it seemed then, the US and Canada going to war.
don't laugh. That is the globalist crown corporate. Whoa, excuse me. Globalist crown corporate hangout. That's where all the Soviet, what do you call them? The Soviet agents, the long-term illegal sleepers, always came through Eastern Canada. Always.
Okay. Brendan. Bloody hell. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute riot of a conversation. I look forward to having you back on. And it might be that perhaps you and I should one day do a 10-hour conversation. Let us know in
Oh,
the
I love to
comments.
talk.
Let us know in the
I
comments
love to
if
talk.
you'd like a 10-hour video between me and Brendan, or just Brendan on his own.
At high school, I was known as King Goss,
King Goss?
the king of gossip.
The king of gossip. Okay, I thought it might be an Australian term, so I'm going to be careful.
Okay, let's go to this guy's channel and see if we can find this Charlie Kirk thing. Confronting Charlie Kirk. Gannon and at Taub. Plot underscore program. There we go.
The elites might tell you that a pillow company that has been banned from Walmart has no business in journalism, but much like his products, Lindell TV is flawless.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lindell Show here. Edward, I'm getting that feedback like crazy again. Can you hear me okay, Vanessa?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. How about now?
Okay. So nope. Well, it doesn't look like I can find it, so I'm going to go to the space race. Close off that. I'll try and find that later. Why is everything in here is the opposite of that? Which that are we talking about there, JP? I have another video. Kelly's kid is at the doctor's, so she thought she would be in and out real quick, but apparently not. So we'll have to do a show with her later. Here we go. Sure. And like I said, I do like covering this space stuff because I do think that's going to be happening. And I'll
to orbit. But these are not satellites like Starlink or any.
Let's rewind you back to the beginning.
By now, you've probably seen Elon Musk's announcement. SpaceX has already shifted focus to building a self-growing city on the moon. And the reasoning behind that shift is simple. You can build a moon base in 10 years. That will be hard, but it's not impossible. While building a city on Mars would take at least 20 years, probably more if it's even doable at all. Which realistically, there's always been a good chance it just doesn't work and everyone dies. Yeah. Elon himself has admitted this in.
Yeah, it is possible. We're dealing with a Roanoke type situation for our first Mars base, but I do think once we have a moon base and a moon city, the possibility and the next steps are asteroids, really, and not Mars. Mars is kind of like Elon's thing, but if we can get, I think Mars is achievable in this lifetime, but manned mission to Mars is definitely achievable in his lifetime. There's ways to do it, but we seem to be going with ion drives powered by nuclear reactors, which is really good. And once we get them up to, in the next 10 years, once we can get them up to being able to carry people for a couple months, maybe with a central rotator for some sort of gravity, that'll be great.
No subtle terms on many different occasions. Now, that's not to argue that the moon is entirely safe, but we know that if you get sick or injured on the moon, you can come home. While the journey to Mars, that was always going to be a one-way trip.
I disagree with that. I think that's not a one-way trip. I think it is entirely possible to develop up technology to get us to the point where coming back to Mars is on a regular basis, like once every year, will be a possibility. And there's Ben Bova, who wrote a lot about this in his science fiction, about how you can do these things.
So we might know why this is happening, but exactly what is about to happen is going to look more like science fiction than anything NASA has ever dreamed up. What is a self-growing city on the moon? Well, if you've been following this story for any amount of time, you'll probably recognize that this is one of many statements from Mr. Musk that is designed to be highly provocative, yet purposefully vague. It's like Tesla's new mission statement, to build a world of amazing abundance. Sounds cool, but what does it really mean? That's open to interpretation. Though the self-growing city terminology does give us a pretty solid hint in the direction that this is all going. AI, automation, and robots. So it's probably not a coincidence that SpaceX just purchased an entire AI company, one that just happens to also be owned by Musk. xAI itself also owns the social media platform X and is best known for their multi-talented AI language model Grok. And strangely enough, it's actually through xAI that we've learned more specific details about what Elon plans to build on the moon. The first thing will be satellites. SpaceX now plans to build satellite factories on the lunar surface equipped with a radical invention that will launch them into orbit. But these are not satellites like Starlink or anything else we know today. This lunar factory will produce orbital data centers for running super advanced AI models on Earth, and to make those satellites, they'll be using resources harvested from the moon itself. Now, this still doesn't tell us why SpaceX has to go to the moon to build AI satellites, because what SpaceX is trying to do here is to solve the hardest part of the equation, which is moving a satellite from the ground to space.
Right.
This is the most important part of SpaceX and xAI's plan for the moon. To move those satellites from the surface and into Earth orbit, SpaceX will build something called a mass driver, also sometimes referred to.
Mass drivers! Mass drivers! My favorite. Though when I first encountered my first mass drivers in Wing Commander, and they really suck compared to lasers, but they make you fly the scimitar a lot, so you gotta put up with mass drivers.
As a railgun. It works kind of like a train engine on a track. It accelerates an object to escape velocity and then flings it out into space using energy from powerful electromagnets. It's actually not that.
Yeah, I agree with you, JP. That was kind of like what kind of blew my mind when that guy, Brendan O'Connell, was like, oh no, Bibi wasn't going to, we have this narrative that Bibi is the one secretly and promulgating that we wanted to do an attack on Iran, and he's secretly manipulated Trump. We see that in the Wall Street Journal. We hear that from Joe Kent. And then this guy's like, no, it's the complete opposite of what was going on. They're begging him not to because they don't want to lose that node of control. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. So it's sort of like, if we're reading that's completely wrong, but hey, it's everything could be he's just another psyop as well. So we got to confirm but verify. But I just thought he was an interesting counterpoint to what we're hearing a lot out there. Thought I'd bring him in. After watching, I'm like, holy crap, that's the complete opposite of everything we were being told.
That different from the technology that allows an electric car to launch from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And guess what? Musk has some experience in that field already. Because the moon is much smaller than the Earth, it has no atmosphere to create wind resistance. It therefore has a relatively low escape velocity, which is the speed required to overcome gravity. On Earth, that speed would be 11.2 kilometers per second, but escape velocity from the moon is a mere 2.38 kilometers per second.
1/6
For anyone trying to do the math, that's still over 8,600 kilometers per hour. So while this is similar to an electric car in theory, it's still the biggest, most powerful electric vehicle ever conceived. Regardless of that challenge, though, it would still be so incredibly easy to reach space from the moon when compared to the massive complications of launching from Earth. From the moon, you don't actually need rockets or fuel or any kind of hardware that consumes resources and requires maintenance. It's all reduced down to magnets, a big steel.
Interesting. My first article I ever wrote for any magazine was based on Jared Bull and his super cannon. And it was just a giant railgun, ironically destroyed by Israel. And he got killed.
Rail and electricity. Now this is all cool, but who's going to build all of this crazy stuff on the moon? Well, it's not going to be guys in spacesuits, that's for sure. It's going to have to be robots. And we also know where those robots are coming from. That's Optimus, the Tesla bot. And it is working toward being able to accomplish one key thing to make building on the moon a reality. You see, building on the moon has a major challenge because we can't bring the Earth along with us no matter how hard we try. Let's use the Apollo missions as our example. The Saturn V moon rocket. It stands as one of the most powerful machines ever created by human beings. It towers over almost every other rocket in existence.
And NASA made a lawn ornament out of it. Actually, I was at NASA, and you walk into the one of the things on, and you look up, and you're literally standing beneath a Saturn missile. It's rocket, and you can just walk around under it. I took a bunch of pictures. It's pretty cool.
And this is the payload that Saturn V was able to deliver onto the surface of the moon, the lunar module. Just barely enough hardware to land a pair of astronauts, keep them alive for 3 days, and then blast them back off into space. One of the lofty goals that Musk has recently spoken about for the Tesla bot is achieving a level of self-replicating technology that works in a very similar way to the old sci-fi concept of the von Neumann probe. If you're not familiar, the idea is to make a spacecraft that would be able to explore the galaxy at slower than light speed over the course of millions of years. Of course, no one machine could possibly operate for that long, so the von Neumann probe would land on the first stable planet it encountered and deploy an automated, robotic factory that would begin harvesting raw materials from the new planet and constructing new spaceships. Then the replicated ships would go off in all directions and find their own planets to set up shop and build more spaceships, and on, and on, and on, until the von Neumann probes have spread throughout the entire galaxy. That's
Replicators. Anyone watching SG-1? He's talking about replicators.
what people are always hoping to discover when one of these interstellar objects is spotted in our solar system, like 3I Atlas. It's the potential to see an ancient alien probe in action, although as far as we can tell, it always just turns out to be a weird rock. But that...
Yeah. No, I agree. It does go against a lot of things. But I mean, I thought it was interesting to bring up, just kind of get that kind of perspective. I think there's a kernel of truth there. I think most of the stuff he's talking about inside Iran, but I don't really think know about that for like BBC flying across doing that, because we have people like Joe Kent saying the complete opposite. So, but I think he has good, useful information on Iran, and I think he's definitely going to be another. I did subscribe to his channel, so I'm going to start seeing more stuff from him, and you just kind of suss him out a bit more.
Concept applied to Tesla's Optimus would be more than just robots building robots. It would be robots mining ore, making plastic, building electric motors, fabricating new microchips, all on their own without any need for human intervention. Now, when we go back to that term, self-growing city, we are beginning to really understand what Elon is hinting at. This is a lot more than just building on the moon. This is a full supply chain from mining to manufacturing. The point being that if anyone thinks we are going to build this satellite factory and the mass driver system on the Earth and then ship it to the moon on a rocket, that is just not going to work out, even with SpaceX providing the muscle for this whole operation in the Starship, which is the one thing SpaceX has that no one else in the world could possibly build. It's the first super heavy lift rocket, orbiter, and lander combination that is also fully reusable, meaning that not only will Starship carry more stuff into space than any other rocket, but it can also return to the Earth, land, refuel, and launch again. Or it can refuel while still in Earth orbit, fly to the moon or Mars, and then land there as well. And that's not even the end of this rocket's usefulness. This is the idea, at least. In practice,
when I first heard about Elon Musk's program back in the early 2000s, I seriously looked into trying to join SpaceX. But as a Canadian, I wouldn't get the call of any of the not only needing work visa, but you'd also have to basically what do I want to say? I wouldn't get the security clearance, right? Unless I had like an advanced engineering, and all the jobs at the time, the only job I could get would probably be a janitor anyway. So, hey, but it was definitely something I was interested. I did enough work into it to look into it.
We've seen various Starship prototypes complete some very impressive milestones over nearly 3 years of operation. We've seen 11 of them launch, a few of them land, and 2 that were able to deploy a small payload into space. But we've also seen a lot of Starships just blow up in midair. So even through a very optimistic lens, this is still very much a work in progress, and that is fine. Musk isn't trying to say that Starship will land on the moon this year, but he does think it'll land next year. And that is still a very ambitious goal, but let's cut the guy some slack and say it's not impossible. In addition to being incredibly powerful, the Starship does have another big advantage that other rockets just can't provide, which is to say that it can serve a dual purpose. The Starship itself is essentially a big stainless steel tube that gets filled with cargo and propellant. When it lands on the moon, all of the propellant will be used up and all of the cargo will be unloaded. That leaves us with an empty metal tube that is 9 meters wide and about 60 meters long. And this is starting to look like the framing for a pretty spacious human habitat. Just one hollowed out Starship would offer about as much internal volume as the entire International Space Station, which itself is essentially a series of connected metal tubes. Now, there is still some work that needs to be done, because if you were to just set up camp inside a used cargo Starship, then there's only about 3 millimeters of stainless steel separating you from the exceptionally deadly environment of the moon, which is not good. So we do have to go the extra mile of burying the ship in lunar soil to create a thick layer of insulation. That is going to protect against radiation, regulate temperature, and act as a shield against any small meteorites that are likely to fall on us. Okay, so we've got a cool place to live, but we didn't go to the moon to just hang out inside all the time. So we need to get around. And of course, SpaceX is going to have an answer for this as well. Also borrowed from their friends at Tesla, the Cybertruck. Can't sell them on Earth, might as well start launching them into space. Of course, you wouldn't actually want to just send a normal Cybertruck to the moon. That's way overbuilt for a moon rover, and the design of the truck as it is would not work even for a second. Fluids would boil off, rubber tires would explode, it would be a mess. But the basic concept of the Cybertruck is sound, and it could just be the key to unlocking the potential of the moon. NASA used electric vehicles on the moon back in the 1970s, and they worked great with the technology of the era. So obviously, Tesla can do a lot better in this day and age. The driving range of those old Apollo dune buggies was a little less than 100 kilometers on a non-rechargeable battery, which is actually pretty impressive for the time. So just imagine how far we could go today on a single charge. Tesla's autonomous driving AI would also play a huge role. Now we can have these vehicles moving around robots and loads of raw materials without any humans needing to get involved. That gives people more time to focus on the important things like science and exploration. Now at the heart of this self-growing city needs to be energy, a lot of it. There is a humongous difference between powering a small human outpost and operating a massive AI satellite factory and mass driver system. And that energy will come from the sun. One of the many big changes that Elon has made recently to both the Tesla and SpaceX business model is to prioritize the manufacturing of solar panels, but not just any solar panels. You see, right now, almost every solar panel in the world is made in China. And that's a problem for an American company like SpaceX, because while solar panels are actually fairly cheap to build, markups and incredibly high import tariffs make them fairly expensive to buy. So Musk has directed both of his largest companies to build their own solar panels in the USA.
And once again, we're seeing the reindustrialization of America via the tariffs. Just a good Promethean action side note there.
And he set the goal of producing 100 gigawatts per year of solar capacity. For scale, 100 gigawatts is about 1/5 of the current United States electricity generation. So in 5 years of manufacturing at that scale, Tesla and SpaceX would have enough solar panels to power America all on their own. But that's not what they're gonna do. Elon's plan for the majority of that solar production is to launch it into space. Every single one of those AI data center satellites is going to need a massive array of solar panels to run the supercomputers within. Plus, there's the factory that builds them and the mass driver that launches them. This will also need an incredibly large collection of solar panels. So is it even possible to make enough of them? Well, one thing that Musk points out is that a solar panel made for Earth and one made for space can be very different products. Most of what we consider to be a solar panel is the heavy glass and metal case that holds the photocells and protects them from the elements. There's no weather in space or on the moon, so you don't need all of that. The worst case scenario would be that a panel gets hit with a space rock, and in a world where solar cells are cheap and abundant, you would simply just change it out for a new one, no big deal. And if anything, this actually sheds some light onto what Tesla means when they say things like amazing abundance. It doesn't mean Cybertrucks everywhere, it means that when energy is cheap and labor and transportation are automated, then you can essentially build anything and humans are only limited by our ability.
Yep, great. Well, that was kind of the show for today. I was glad to have both Professor Pierogi and JP, our usual guy, watching in the audience, and I'm leaving the 3 people for the show today. We might be doing a later stream tonight, either with Warhound or Kelly, or maybe both, depending on their schedules. We'll see. So be aware of that. If you like this stuff, like, share, subscribe, and if you want to support, I have a locals page. So it's that's kind of it. So I'm just liking the format, liking to interact with and try to build a community here and hang out with you guys. So once again, we touch on a bit of politics, breaking politics, political review, and then a bit of science at the end, because I think that's for the future. So this is the Spy Guy signing out, agents. Bye-bye.